What is up today?
We had 3 new people arrive at the Kalavan Retreat Center today. Daniel, Dimitri, and famed photojournalist Marinak Gazarian. Hello. How are you? How is everyone? How was the journey here?
Everything is perfect. The view here are really, really good, outstanding, and the guys are really welcoming. So everything is super good.
And how are the cats?
The cats is also beautiful, but they didn't yet, get close to me.
They don't trust you yet.
Yeah.
Yes. They're suspicious of foreigners.
That's all.
They are gentlemen.
And you guys are Russian, but you live in Armenia?
Yeah. At this moment, yeah. But we are from Russia, from Moscow, both of us.
Okay. And why are you in Armenia?
It's a complicated thing. It's mostly because of politics, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Enough said. And more importantly, why did you want to come to the Kalavan Retreat Center? How did you even hear about us?
I read an article about the travelers, the guys and the girls who travel across the world.
Like digital nomads?
But they are not digital, they just nomads.
Okay, just nomads.
Yeah. And I find this website that's called Workaway.
Yeah.
And I find Kalavan Retreat Center there.
Mm-hmm.
So it immediately, get really interesting to me. And I started to see through, research through the social media.
Yeah.
And get more and more interested. And finally I'm here.
Great. It's been interesting. In the time that we've been accepting international volunteers, which was just since the beginning of this year, it has been so much easier to get people to come from other countries than it has been to get local Armenians to come here.
So you mean that most of the people here are from another country?
We have one Armenian here currently, but that's rare. We don't often have Armenians here, even though it's just 2 hours from Yerevan.
Maybe Armenians don't really, travel across their own country. They just live in their homes. Maybe.
Yeah, I think they're just very reserved. I think new ideas, trying new things, experiments, going away for a weekend or a week or a month they just don't break their traditions and their routines.
So it's like they're I forgot the word, but they're like very conservative.
Yes, very conservative is a good way to describe them. And so I think most of them, even the ones who have heard of me and what we're doing here, are probably just confused by what we're doing. They don't understand it at all, or they may even be frightened by it, like they see it as threatening in some way.
Something hide, in this strange place.
Yeah.
So it's not usual thing.
Yes, well, that's the point.
For them.
Yeah, for us to be the first ones to do something that no one has done here. We try to do that with a lot of things here. We're always looking for new building techniques, new ways of teaching and learning things, new habits, routines, hobbies, skills that even maybe if we're not the very first ones in Armenia, certainly are one of the first, that are not very well represented here. Because now it creates this new standard. Like once you know that something can be done here and you see people representing it and doing it well, it changes people's mentality. Then they get curious. They say, well, how did they do that? What's going on there? That fear eventually translates into interest, right? If you persist long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mentioned that even when I walked in Yerevan for example, in a bright socks, it's really, I get an attention because it's not like usual thing there, for example.
Oh, just because of the color of your clothing?
Yeah, for example, the bright socks.
Okay,
The socks of bright color.
Sure.
So I think it was the first step when I noticed
in Yerevan, which is by far the most modern part of the country.
Everyone has looked like this.
Yes, we've had people here covered in tattoos. We've had gay people. We've had people from different countries with different skin colors. So variety in ways that really can't be ignored. Like especially in a rural location like this, the locals stare like, "What? Who are these crazy people? Who's he going to bring next?" You know, and you know, hopefully that does something to loosen their prejudices a little bit, because many of them, you can tell, are not happy that there are these strange people in their village now, even though no one here is harming anyone else, no one is stealing things or damaging their property or being rude in any way, right? And so if with enough exposure, I think that's the only way you can overcome intergenerational biases and prejudices, because eventually you accept, okay, maybe just because something is different than what I'm used to, maybe just because it's unknown, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't even have to fully understand it to just say, okay, that's not harming me, right? Like, it's okay.
It's a modern way of thinking.
Yeah. Even like Amir, our Iranian, who looks very Iranian, he doesn't look Armenian, for instance. He has a different skin tone, different hairstyle and color. You know, he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met most of the time. He's a very competent man. He's done an enormous amount of construction work on this house. When he first came here, some of the other Armenians that I'd been working with for construction on the house at first seemed like threatened, like, who is this Iranian man doing the construction work that I'm supposed to be doing, right? And he wasn't taking their jobs. I was still hiring them, but it was, some of them took several days off because I think they thought that Amir would leave eventually. They didn't know he was a long-term guest, so they all just come back next week when he's not here. Like, they didn't want to work with the Iranian,
It sounds
right?
really weird for me, because maybe it's because it's the rural area or something, and the people here are even more conservative.
But now Amir's been here several months, and now some of those same people who initially seemed like they didn't want to talk to Amir or work with him daily. He's learned some Armenian, they speak some English, so there's enough communication going on, and now they're genuinely friendly, right? So they overcame that bias that initially, foreigner, that's bad.
I think they just maybe adjust to him, right?
Yes. It's just with enough exposure, that initial threat detector that says, that's bad, it's bad, stay away from it, just kind of tones down a little, and you say, okay, maybe it's not that bad, maybe it's okay, right? And then eventually you forget that you ever even had a problem. It's like, wait, why didn't I like this Iranian person? I forget, why was I so afraid of him at first?
But
right?
I think it's one of the most ancient mechanism of the human biology, that if you look at someone who don't look like you or don't act like you, it's
tribalism.
Yeah, you immediately
collectivism,
thought that this is a threat.
Group mentality. Yeah. Really, besides the deliberate efforts we put on to try to teach people new skills, new philosophies, a different approach to science and learning, that's more of a conscious, explicit thing. But a lot of the value that we're trying to accomplish here is more unconscious and implicit. It's just exposure to different things that slowly opens the mind, right? Especially in the young people, but even in the old people, you might hate these weird tattooed hippie freaks that show up in your village for the first several dozen times you see them, but eventually, if you realize they're not going anywhere and they're not harming you in any way, you might just say, oh yeah, it's just those weird people from another country, whatever, you stop hating them and you just kind of accept them, right? And I don't know any other way over the long run to just kind of systemically dismantle prejudices and biases and fear of the unknown. And that, more than anything, is what a country like Armenia needs. Because you can say all these great things about Armenia's sense of tradition and culture and authenticity and family bonding, and that's all great, but unless it comes at the cost of isolating yourself from the rest of the world and different ways of thinking, right? And different ways of doing things, different types of people, right?
Yeah. But maybe the gears of changing is started, to spinning.
Well, it's adapt or die. The world will not wait for you to catch up to it. The world will move on without you, and you'll be stuck in the Stone Age while everyone else is going to space. Right? So sooner or later, you have to open the mental doors, not just the physical doors, the borders that let people in, but the mental doors to new ways of living and thinking and just being a human being who respects other human beings.
That's the rule of life.
It should be.
A good life.
It will be if we're successful, but so far, not quite. I wrote an article called Armenia Needs Hippies. That's essentially what I was talking about, right? What is a hippie? You know, outside just the limited context of like the 1960s American hippie revolution. It's not just somebody who does drugs or has long hair or runs around naked or something. It's just somebody extremely open-minded, essentially, which is a trait that all of us have to various degrees. How open are our minds? How curious are we? How much do we want to learn new things? How much are we willing to question what we already believe? And as we get older, unfortunately, that tends to go down. We tend to get more and more closed-minded. And some cultures, as a rule, are very, very closed-minded and isolationist and like kind of trying to protect themselves from foreign influence, right? So you're influenced by the general culture around you. But if you could bring enough open-minded people together, it eventually influences the other people to open their minds a little bit too.
But you know, in my case, I suppose that the older I get, the more open-minded I become.
That's one way to live, yeah. Like the more you learn, the more humble you become. Yeah. Like you learn so much that you have to wonder, how much else am I going to learn? What will I learn next? Oh my God, the world is so much bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things I learned when I started traveling when I was just 18, and I was coming from Southern California, which I would already say is probably one of the more open-minded places in the world. So I had good conditions to start in, but even then, once I started traveling, I realized how little the adults I had grown up with knew about the world, right? That I had already seen much more than most of them, and I barely understood the world, but I already understood it more than almost all of them. And they were the ones trying to tell me how the world worked, right? Or how people worked, or what things are like on the other side of the world, or, you know, and so then that's a really humbling experience when you realize how few people, especially the people who tried to tell you how to think and how to live, actually understand anything about what they're talking about.
Yeah.
All right. Let me show you around where you'll be staying at the Kalavan Retreat Center. Where should we begin?
Maybe the room?
Yeah, maybe the rooms. Why not? First, we'll show you where you won't be staying. This is my room. It's sacred ground. There's a cat in here. Hi, cat. Hi, cat.
Wow.
Oh, do you like my Soviet propaganda posters?
It's a really nice place.
Yeah. Wait. Can you read that?
Yeah, of course. Чтобы больше иметь, надо больше производить.
What does that mean in English?
It means if you want to have something, you need to produce something.
What a concept. Amazing. Did you know for thousands of years people didn't understand that concept? That to have something you have to produce it first? It's like a relatively recent idea. It's ironic that it was the Soviet communists who put it on a poster. And this one?
Знание разорвет цепи рабства. I thought it means the knowledge breaks the chains of slavery.
Yes, that's true. Knowledge is liberating and empowering. The more you know, the more you can do. Action, choice, follows knowledge. And the last one.
Чтобы строить, надо знать. Чтобы знать, надо учиться. If you want to build something, you need to know something. And if you want to know something, you need to learn.
Yeah, study, learn, right? Yes.
You're positive, actually.
Yes, that's the irony, because such a beautiful idea, so well articulated, so useful, so relevant, and it was the fucking communists, some of the most inhumane practices in the world, that accomplished the exact opposite of all of these things they preached.
Oh, that one is...
It's like 1984,
Yeah.
where they talk about freedom and peace and empowering people, but they're doing the exact opposite, right?
And
That's
you
the
can
irony.
accept it.
That's why it's propaganda. Because if it were true, it would just be information. It would just be education, right? Just be a description of reality. Instead, it's an idea they want you to believe that actually has nothing to do with reality. Have you seen this movie?
It's Star Wars.
Yes.
I think it's the third part, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's Anakin and Obi-Wan during the most climactic moment in the whole series. We won't spoil it for people like Amir who haven't seen Star Wars, but this is the single most important moment in all 6 Star Wars movies. This is our top floor guest room. It's also where we have our piano and several musical instruments like violins and ukuleles. We have a wood-burning furnace here that goes through both rooms. So this heats the whole top floor, but it's also redundant. It's kind of a backup because we have a radiator system that is burned on the bottom floor, but goes to every room in the house. But if for some reason that's not working, such as the power's out, so the water pump that pumps the hot water everywhere isn't working. Yeah, we still have backup systems. We have redundancies so that we won't die, hopefully. When we're doing that with everything now, we're buying a generator. If the power goes out, a large water tank for emergency. We can last a week, hopefully, without water if it ever comes to that, and food supplies and so forth. So in a room like this, we usually will have 3 or 4 people at most, which I originally thought would be like too many. Like people are going to want their privacy. But the vast majority of volunteers who have come here have told me this is far better accommodations than they're used to, which is like 10 or 20 people sharing a dorm in one bathroom in bunk beds, you know. So this is like much nicer for them. So that's nice that I can offer that higher standard of living for my guests and volunteers. Here is our second guest room on the bottom floor. Hi. Everybody loves the stonework here. This is what the walls originally looked like, except a shitty version of this, without this nice lacquer coat on it, and it was just this old stone dusty cow barn. And so we redid everything. We put in these nice tiled floors, which are actually heated under the floor, so the heat rises up through the whole room. We left this aspect of the stone intact, because who doesn't love good stonework? We initially put a doorway here between the kitchen and this room, but then we realized we didn't need a doorway directly into the kitchen because you just go out through the corridor. So we closed it off and turned it into this recessed shelving, which actually works better. We'll probably paint a giant unalome or something behind the shelves there. The unalome is one of our symbols. We have a few symbols now. I'm okay with that. One of them is monkeys. The monkey, I would say, is our spirit animal. Despite the cats we have here, we're all monkeys here, which means we're very good at adapting, innovating new solutions, improvising, just figuring things out as we go along. You have to be to live this kind of life. You can't plan everything down to the last detail. Normally we have guitars and ukuleles on these stands. And yeah, nice window there. Again, same thing, usually just 3 or 4 people at most in here. That's a couch, but it's actually quite comfortable to sleep on too. It's probably the best bed in the house. Hi, Dexter. And now the bane of my existence, the most chaotic part of the house, the infamous unholy kitchen, which right now is relatively clean. May not look like much, but it's usually worse than this. We just ate, as you can tell, this is the aftermath of a huge meal. We still have a lot of work to do in here. It's quite basic still. The tables and chairs are all right. Shelves are all right. But we really need to just do something with the food prep area, counters and cabinets and shelves, I don't know. But we just kind of came up with this bare minimal solution of pegboards and table and baskets of vegetables, which, you know, I don't really do much in the kitchen. I refuse to make kitchen decisions. I have a policy when new people come here, I tell them, I am king everywhere in the house. You're on my domain. But when I enter the kitchen, I'm entering as a guest in a foreign kingdom. Whoever is the chef that day is the king, and I bow to their will. I refuse to make any decisions in the kitchen because the level of stress in my life goes up tenfold if I have to start thinking about what's happening in the kitchen. And that includes the small things like, what are we having for lunch today? Versus the big things like, how do we organize all the furniture? Where does all this stuff go? What about these baking sheets and these pots and pans? And so my solution is to refuse to think about it. I said, anyone else in this house will be better qualified to think about those things than me, so I will leave it up to them. Very simple principle. Do what you do best and don't do anything else. Much better things for me to be thinking about than what the fuck is going on in my own kitchen. Around here is our kind of a laundry room and our second bathroom. There was one up on the top floor too, shared between those 2 rooms. We will have a third bathroom soon outside. 2 nice modern bathrooms. Even in this village, a modern bathroom with an indoor flush toilet and heated shower is a status symbol. It's a luxury because most of the people here still use outhouses, which means they shit in a hole in the ground, essentially. That's a pretty fair description of an outhouse. And when I first moved here, I did not have running water in my house for 6 months. And there's a story behind that I would like to cover in another video. Remind me that that's something we need to talk about, why I didn't have running water for 6 months. And I had no bathroom, and I didn't even have an outhouse. It didn't even have a hole in the ground. Shit. So what should I do? Well, remember what I just said about monkeys and monkey mentality? I'm a world-class monkey. So I used my monkey brain to innovate a solution. I built myself a dry compost toilet on the first day I arrived here, which is basically a large receptacle where you mix solid waste, you separate it from the liquid waste, pee and poo separate, and you mix it with sawdust and other dry natural material that actually prevents the poo from festering and smelling because it stays dry and it breaks down rather quickly into biodegradable material. And so on day one, just by Googling how to do that with minimal tools and minimal construction experience, I actually built myself a nicer toilet than the majority of the villagers have used their whole lives. Because trust me, if you saw their outhouses that they shit in the middle of winter, and you saw my nice dry compost toilet, you would prefer to shit in my dry compost toilet. So that obviously is still less nice and less modern than a nice modern indoor toilet, of which we now have 2, almost 3. But I just thought that was interesting that something so simple like that, it was so much easier to find a way just to improve on the way everyone here does something just out of habit. So it wasn't expensive, right? It's not like refurbishing a whole nice modern indoor toilet can cost thousands of dollars. So that might be a reason why you don't have one of these. But the one I built for basically free in one day was already a significant upgrade than what they just do out of habit. It's the way our ancestors have always gone to the bathroom, so we'll just keep doing it. We don't mind, Monkey mind, We have 2 varieties of livestock. We've experimented with many, and most animals take a lot of work or cause a lot of mess or are a big liability, we've learned, especially the bigger the animals get. We tried to have a goat, it ran away. We tried to have turkeys, they were too wild and they didn't lay eggs consistently. Chickens are okay, but I prefer ducks. They have a lot more personality and their eggs taste better in my opinion. And rabbits are quite easy too. So that's what we've narrowed it down to. Ducks and rabbits are just the easiest low-stress animals to raise for eggs and meat. And it makes us unique because I don't think anyone else here raises either of these animals. And lots of people have chickens, or pigs or cows, but if you want rabbit meat or duck eggs, then I'm your guy. I have a monopoly on the market. So you can see they're quite excited by our presence. Hi guys. Where's my favorite one? There he is. Can I pick you up? No, the colors. They're like his... No, come here. And you can get a decent amount of meat off these guys. It's supposed to be very healthy, very clean meat. It's also supposed to be very efficient and therefore environmentally friendly. Rabbits have the highest rate of conversion from vegetation to meat. Like with a cow, it's something like they need to eat 20 kilos of grass to make 1 kilo of beef. And with a rabbit, it's something like 3 to 1, which is among the most efficient in the whole animal kingdom.
7 times this.
Yeah. So if you want to throw out your salad when you're done, just imagine, 1/3 of whatever amount of salad you give them turns into rabbit meat for me to eat, basically. And they have a nice insulated house to keep them warm in winter, which again is something I noticed most of the locals don't do with their animals. They just have shitty barns that aren't even fully closed or protected from the wind. Or they just have a roof. We actually have a fully closed, insulated house. So with enough warm bodies in here, it stays relatively warm without heating. In winter, it stops the water mostly from freezing, and they even keep having babies. They keep procreating in winter, which I've read in general they don't do unless they're very, very comfortable and have lots of food and are very warm. Like animals will often take a break from that. Same thing with our ducks. They continue to lay eggs through winter as long as they have good housing, and enough food. which is cool. They're a bit more productive for us. This whole thing, all this concrete patio is relatively new. It was shitty dirt and rocks for a really long time. And guess what? When we flush our nice modern indoor toilets, the poop goes under this giant concrete stage. There was a big hole here before. I don't know why. It wasn't used as an outhouse or anything. It was just a big hole. And so we built this on top, and the plumbing runs under here. Is our own septic system. Yeah, essentially. Samville figured that out. Good for Samville.
Yeah.
Clever guy. Samville's a good monkey too.
Yeah.
Here is our workshop and the future accommodations. Our little studio apartment, which will have a big root cellar in front of it where we can store food and other things all year. And there will be our third nice modern flush toilet here, right? So whoever is staying here can kind of be separate from the rest of the house if they want to be. We can rent this out privately, or I could live in it, or someone else could, whatever we want to do, I don't know. And again, it doesn't look like much right now. I can hear my voice echo a bit. But this is what the rest of the house looked like too when we first started working on it. So imagine that this will be pretty nice. Hopefully by the time the snow starts falling. Yeah. So we have plenty of work to do indoors, which is good because we can't do much work outside when it's snowing. So we try to plan most of our outdoor activities to be done by the time the snow comes, which will be next month. And now we can focus on art inside and around the house and finishing the interior of this and everything I said about the kitchen. So you guys will probably be quite busy here.
Of course.
During your time. You'll learn some interesting construction skills. I doubt you've ever seen a wall that looks like this before. This is called an earth bag wall.
Yeah.
Have you seen this before?
No, I get to know about this method from your Instagram.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm fairly confident we are the first ones in Armenia to use this style of construction. So like we were saying before about just influencing people with things they've never seen before, whether we ever start a movement of building with earth bags in Armenia, just like, opening people's minds to there's a whole bunch of stuff you've probably never tried before. And some of it might be better for a particular situation than what you're used to. And I noticed that with Samville and all the guys when I first started hiring them to work on the house. It's like I didn't have any experience refurbishing a house. So when we'd approach a new room, they'd say, well, what do you want to do with this room? And I'd say, I don't know, you're the construction expert, what do you think we should do? And then we kind of go back and forth, we're saying, well, this is the way Armenians would do it, or this is like the Soviet style of how we would do it. And I'd say, okay, I guess that works. And then I'd Google some things and I'd show some pictures and I'd say, but what if we did it like this though? Is this possible? Like, because again, I don't know. Like maybe there's a reason why we can't do it that way, right? But just showing and saying like, I think this would be better. Do you think you can do this? And he'd say, well, I don't know, I've never done that before, but I guess I could figure it out. But we probably need to buy these tools first. And that was just for 5 years, that back and forth of slowly figuring things out. And I could see that to Samville, it was more than just a construction job. Like I need to eat, so I'm going to do the work, but rather it was like creative expression. It was like, I'm going to learn new ways of doing things, try things, experiment. And then eventually he started coming to me with ideas saying, well, Gregory, what if we did your bathroom like this? Because it's like he wanted to try it. He wanted to see if he could do it. And I was giving him a canvas to paint on, essentially, to try new things that I guess he'd probably not done in most of his conventional construction work throughout his life. So creative expression, learning new things, and I'm getting a cooler household at the same time. That's what we're doing here. We're changing the way people think about things, the way they work, the way they make money, the way they express themselves, and opening their minds to new ways of living. America, America. You know why we fly an American flag here?
Why?
Yes, why do I have an American flag here besides just that I'm American?
Maybe, about the... I forgot the word.
Freedom.
About the complex of, ideas about America. Like freedom and all of that stuff.
Yes, everything we've been talking about so far, these are quintessential American values and ideals. right?
That's what I
Bringing
mean.
together people from different backgrounds who share ideals and values, trying new things that have never been done before, intercultural, interdisciplinary approaches to problems in life. America was the original social experiment that made that happen on a nationwide scale, right? And now we're just continuing that same trend in the modern age, aided by the internet and ease of international travel. People from all over the world can come here. We can share ideas online easily. Anyone can learn to do anything or to be anyone they want. They're not restricted by their starting conditions, where they come from, how they learn to live or think about who they are. They can change, they can grow and evolve. They can be a monkey, an American monkey.
And build something new.
Yes, in here and out there. Yes.